Uhuru. Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, everybody. Thank you. And yes, Uhuru, Comrade Lisa.
Uhuru. Trying to open up my camera. Uhuru.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. We're ready.
Uhuru, great to see you.
Great to see you as well, my comrade. Um,
Yes, it's great to be here with you, Comrade Lisa Davis.
yes,
Uhuru.
and we will be co-hosting this powerful event, co-emceeing. And I just want to say uhuru to everyone and welcome to this special fundraising event, which is hosted by the Hands Off Uhuru Hands Off Africa Anti-Colonial Free Speech Fight Back Committee. And my name is Lisa Davis. As you know, I'm a member of the Black is Back Coalition, well, the vice chair, and a member of the Uhuru Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. And I'm just so excited to be co-emceeing this event. And along with Comrade Jesse Neville, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and one of the Uhuru Three as well.
Uhuru, Comrade Lisa, thank you so much. It's an honor to be on this program with you. And yes, as you stated, I'm a very proud member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and Uhuru Solidarity Movement, organizing in the white community under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party for reparations to African people. And I'm also a proud member of the Uhuru Three. And I just want to salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who we have the honor to have in the room with us here in St. Louis. Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. And I also just want to say Uhuru and revolutionary salute to the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Onazane Yeshitela, who is currently on the front lines leading another incredibly important front of the anti-colonial free speech fight back in the struggle to push back against government attacks on the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe. We're going to say a little bit about that in the program tonight as well. And I also finally want to salute Chair Mwezi Odom, the chair of the Hands Off Fight Back Coalition, and Chairwoman Penny Hess, also one of the Uhuru Three, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee for nearly 50 years, and also the vice chair of this Hands Off Uhuru anti-colonial free speech coalition. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in today for this film showing, and just make a quick self-criticism for our delay in getting started today. We had some tech issues we were resolving, but we have smoothed them out, and we're going to have a great film showing and fundraiser for everyone tonight.
Yes, it's going to be a very, very powerful. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Lisa. And I know you're going to introduce our panelists, but I also just did want to salute our amazing panelists that are joining us tonight. Comrade Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, who is born in Congo and lives today in London. And we'll be hearing more about the incredible work of SG Luwezi, as well as Director Tafari Mugeri, who is the director of the Africa regional work for the African People's Socialist Party, located in occupied Azania, known by the colonial name of South Africa, and the incredible Comrade Efia Nwangaza, a veteran of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and an incredible freedom fighter for African people. So we're very honored to have those three amazing panelists on with us tonight.
Yes, we are very honored to have them and to also have each one of you in the room in St. Louis and also in the Zoom room. We could not have had this tremendous victory without you. And we just want to let you know that we appreciate all of your support and everything that you do. And tonight, it's a special fundraiser to help us to raise funds to continue the work that we're doing, to continue winning, and especially in the hour of Trump. We're not afraid, though. We are not afraid. And we are just so glad to have you along with us. And our goal for tonight is to raise $2,000, and you can continue to contribute, to donate by going to handsoffufuru.org/donate. Do we by chance have any idea of what we have raised so far with all these wonderful people who purchased, who donated tickets for this event?
Yes, so far, Comrade Lisa and everybody, with all the tickets that people purchased to attend the film showing tonight, we are almost halfway towards our fundraising goal. We've raised $720 towards our goal of $2,000. So we only need to raise another $1,280 to meet our goal and then keep going with our fundraising.
Yes. We always want to keep going.
And as you said, Lisa, this event is a fundraiser for the legal costs, which will be required to go forward into the next phase of the fight back and the victory in the historic struggle for anti-colonial free speech. The people just won an incredible victory with the sentencing hearing of the chairman and the Uhuru Three last December, where despite the U.S. government's efforts to imprison Chairman Omali Yeshitela initially for up to 15 years and a fine if convicted on both charges of up to $500,000 for the chairman and each of the Uhuru Three, thanks to the incredible relentless fight back of the Hands Off Uhuru movement and all of the amazing comrades throughout the world, including many who are on this call. The room burst into chants and cheers of "not one day, not one dime," and the judge was forced to admit that everything that the Uhuru movement had been charged for doing was free speech, legal and protected free speech. So this was an incredible victory, but it is not over. And we will be rehiring our incredible Uhuru Three legal team, Mutaki Akbar, Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey, Addie Griffin, and Tom Inskeep, to represent the Uhuru Three and to represent the people in our appeal to overturn the bogus conviction of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three on the so-called charge of conspiracy to do the same thing that the jury found the Uhuru Three not guilty of actually doing, which is working as so-called unregistered agents of the Russian government. So the expenses to make this appeal happen, both legally and for all of the organizational work, is estimated to be approximately $75,000. And this event tonight has a goal to chip away at that with the goal of raising $2,000. But if somebody wants to put in 10, 20, 15, or even the whole $75,000, absolutely. And you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And I also want to mention that this event tonight is also building support for the struggle for the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe. And we're going to talk later about an upcoming appeal hearing that's being held on Zoom. It's being held in St. Louis, but people can tune in and participate from throughout the country and throughout the world, because this is a continuation of the attack on the struggle of African people to have self-determination and political and economic power, using the bogus lie that somehow when African people fight for self-determination, that it is the product of some Russian plot. So this is an extremely important part of the fight back, and we will be talking more practically about how people can jump in and be a part of that as well. And tonight's film, Concerning Violence, looks at the history of colonialism and the struggle for African liberation. And we felt that this was an appropriate film to show because the struggle against colonialism continues and is the key question in the whole world today, as the chairman has helped us understand.
Oh, exactly. And just as you were talking about the continuation of the attacks, I just want to briefly say that I also am under attack. I had attended an pro-Palestine vigil. That's the only thing I did. I attended a pro-Palestine vigil in South Orange, New Jersey in March of last year in 2024. And they're coming after me. The state of New Jersey is coming after me. And they're saying that I organized that event without a permit. I didn't organize it at all. I was just there supporting it. So I have a trial, quote unquote, coming up on February 21st. And I'm going to be putting out information with the support of the Black is Back Coalition in terms of a petition, and also telling people how they can support that. We got to let them know that we don't stand alone at all. Touch one, touch all. And we've got to just challenge this because it's wrong. This is in a horrible system, and it's got to be overturned. Uhuru.
Thank you, Comrade Lisa. And just want to, completely unite and express support for that struggle as well, and say hands off Uhuru, hands off Uhuru Bakery Cafe, and hands off Comrade Lisa Davis. Uhuru.
Yes.
So this will be a timely and important discussion with our panelists following this film showing. And just to say a little bit about what this film is about. So it was released in 2014. Concerning Violence is a visual narrative featuring archival material of footage of African independence struggles recorded between 1966 and 1987, covering movements in the struggle for liberation from colonial rule. And this is important because, as the chairman has said, the attack on the Uhuru Three was an attack on Africa, an attack on the struggle of African people for liberation. But today, colonialism is in a serious crisis, because African people are resisting and winning. This powerful footage that you see in this film is combined with a narrated text from Franz Fanon's landmark book, The Wretched of the Earth, written in 1960, and his words are narrated by the actress and singer Lauryn Hill. And I just wanted to make the note that another connection of this film and this book to our case is that one of the overt acts alleged by the United States government against the chairman and the Uhuru Three involved the Africans Charged Genocide Winter Encampment Tour in 2016, where members of the Uhuru movement, including Lisa Davis, toured cities throughout this country to testify at hearings held by the United Nations on the question of the conditions of African people in this country. And those sessions were convened by Muriel Fanon, the daughter of Franz Fanon. And that tour concluded with a statement from the United Nations that reparations were owed to African people in the United States. So this is the kind of work that the Uhuru movement has done, which brought about the attacks, which was attacked by the US government with the attack on the Uhuru Three. And I just want to close my segment here by saying that there's a famous quote in the book Wretched of the Earth where Fanon writes, "Colonialism is not a thinking machine, nor a body endowed with reasoning faculties. It is violence in its natural state, and it will only yield when confronted with greater violence." And Chairman Omali Yeshitela more recently has written, "The material and human resources of Africa have gone to satisfy the requirements of life for Europeans at the expense of Africa and Africans. The process of Africans producing and reproducing life has not been primarily for Africa and Africans. It has been primarily for Europe and the white world at the expense of African people. The progenitor of world capitalism, the attack on Africa and Africans, along with the European assault on Asia and the Americas, rescued Europe and Europeans from an oppressive, 1,000-year-long, disease-ridden, impoverished existence known as feudalism. This was the genesis of the capitalist system as a world economy created on the base of the enslavement of Africans and others." Uhuru.
Uhuru. And while this film that we're about to see, this documentary, contains important information and footage, we recognize that the analysis presented is limited. And so we encourage everyone to join afterwards in the panel discussion about the film that's going to sum up what it means to our ongoing struggle. We are clear that the power of the people and Black power to the African nation is the only way that we can fight back and win. This is a courageous stance that is carried out today by our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, who is leading this brilliant counteroffensive to push back against these vicious attacks. So please, we want everybody to really pay attention to this documentary. We appreciate that you're here to get out of it what you can, but also please stay for the panel discussion afterwards. It will be very important and very important toward our work today, toward what we have to do. It will help to define us, to define our struggle. Uhuru.
Thank you, Comrade Vice Chair Lisa Davis. And just want to thank everybody again for being here. And remember to donate throughout the film. You can be sending in your donations. When we come back, we will be announcing all of the donations that have come in. Our goal tonight is to raise $2,000. And I just want to say, if I may, real quick, I want to shout out everyone. I'm sure will not be surprised to hear that MQ is our first donor tonight. Comrade MQ, one of our most consistent donors, put in $40. Esther Holzendorf, a really wonderful supporter of the Uhuru movement in Kansas City, put in $100. Uhuru to Esther, and she said, "I am pleased and honored to support Uhuru in any way that I can." Right on. Uhuru. And then we have Comrade Thomas, who put in $25. And said, "Solidarity, may this small donation be multiplied by 1,000,000. Right on. Let's do it. And then finally, I want to...
No donation too small. There's really no such thing as a small donation. No donation too small and no donation too large.
Yes, exactly. And finally, I just want to salute another just incredible comrade and supporter, Leah, who put in $200. Uhuru, Leah. So that means before we even hit the lights and get started with our film showing, we're already more than halfway towards our goal. So let's keep it going. We're at $1,075, only $925 left to go. So you can go to handsoffahuru.org/donate and contribute. And we will see everybody right after the film concludes for our panel discussion. Just want to say that colonialism must go. Reparations now, and victory to Africa and African people. Uhuru.
Yeah, I mean that to say that that was so stirring is an understatement. And I remember that I'd seen it before, and it just always leaves me in a certain way that it's so hard to even put into words. But it's why I do what I do, because I don't ever want to be like that. And I think that the way that it ended and the words and the advice was so strong. I don't ever want to be. We should never, ever seek to emulate any part of that. Anyway, I guess this can now open us up our panel discussion, right, Comrade Jesse? I'm following your lead tonight.
Before we dive into that, Comrade Lisa, we just want to thank everybody who has contributed so far. We're about to jump into our panel discussion, and I just wanted to recognize, first of all, every single person attending who purchased a ticket for this event tonight, which contributed towards our goal. Our goal is $2,000. And I want to thank everybody that has gone to handsoffahuru.org/donate to contribute towards the next phase of the fight back, the next phase of the fight against colonialism, the same colonialism that was portrayed in that documentary that we just watched. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to thank Esther, MQ, Thomas, and Leah, who all got us started really strong at the beginning of the event. I also want to thank Sarah, who put in $50, Kat, who put in $10, Uhuru Kat, joining us from London, Carla, who put in $100, Uhuru to Carla. And Carla wrote, "Thank you for educating me on all the injustices, Uhuru." We also want to thank Robert, who put in $10 and became a monthly sustainer to Hands Off Uhuru. And he said, "We have nothing to lose but our chains." We want to thank Kara, who put in $50, Johan, who put in $25, Ruby, who put in $50, and Chairwoman Penny Hess, who put in $100, Uhuru. So that means, Lisa and everyone, that we have raised $1,520, and we are only $480 away from our goal. And I want to just quickly say, and I'll do this real quick because I know everyone's really excited to go into our panel, that the fundraiser that we're having tonight is happening in the context of moving forward towards completing and continuing the trajectory of victory that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Hands Off Uhuru campaign ushered in with the victory of the trial of the Uhuru Three, the anti-colonial free speech trial of the century. And as many people on here know, we had a victory in that trial where the main charge was defeated. The charge, the obscene, slanderous, colonialist charge that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three were somehow working as Russian agents when carrying out the work of fighting to overturn colonialism and create a world of liberation, to invent that future that Fanon talked about at the end of that film. And at the same time, there was this bogus conspiracy conviction as a result of lies by the prosecutors, dirty tricks, and misleading jury instructions. There was a conviction on a bogus conspiracy count. And what the chairman and the Uhuru movement and even our lawyers have said all along is that for this trial to have even happened in the first place, for this indictment to have even been allowed to proceed in the first place, is an assault on the Constitution that the U.S. proclaims to uphold, the principle of First Amendment right to freedom of speech, the Bill of Rights, the right of African people and of all people to have the right to freedom of speech. And as the chairman says, that the First Amendment was created when African people were enslaved, and therefore the First Amendment was created for white people. And African people never had the right to freedom of speech under colonialism. So who else, the chairman says, would be at the vanguard of the fight for free speech? And that is true, was true in the time period that we saw in this film, was true in the period of the trial of the Uhuru Three, and is true now as the chairman and the African working class takes it upon their shoulders to take this to an appeal to fight to overturn this bogus conspiracy conviction so that it can be cemented that the precedent will be set, that the US government cannot expect to just roll over people, that when African people, when oppressed people fight back, they win. And winning this appeal will actually establish a precedent that the US government, it will at least make it harder for the US government to think that they can get away with using these laws to target political speech, to target anti-colonial free speech. So this appeal is incredibly significant, and we will be rehiring the legal team that secured the tremendous victory in the trial of the Uhuru 3. The next phase of the fight back will require at least $75,000 for legal and organizational expenses, and we are raising at least $2,000 of that tonight. So you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And as we've said all along, as Chair Luwezi has always reminded us, every dollar you contribute is an act of resistance. Every dollar you contribute is an act in defense of the right for freedom of speech for African people, for everybody, and is part of the counteroffensive against the US government's efforts to shred freedom of speech and usher in a whole new era of colonial repression. So there's so much at stake with this appeal for everybody who believes in freedom of speech and democratic rights. And that is why it is so important that people are contributing. And wow, here I am going on, and there are donations flooding in. So Comrade Lisa, I just want to say we have, of course, say it with me. I want the room to say it with me, who the next person I'm going to announce. MQ. All right. MQ. Put another $40. Uhuru MQ.
Uhuru MQ.
Like
yes.
MQ. Yes. Be like MQ. We have Janine, who put in $20. Uhuru Janine. We have our comrade Dawn from the Leonard Peltier. I saw online that the name has been changed to the Leonard Peltier Official Support Committee. So we want to salute the Leonard Peltier Official Support Committee and the
victory to Leonard Peltier, and salute.
Yes.
A tremendous victory we had.
That's right. Uhuru. And victory to the indigenous people. We have Ina, who put in $10. Uhuru. We have Comrade Maureen, who put in $50. So we're only $340 away from our goal. I'm going to go ahead and match Chairwoman Penny and put in $100 tonight. So that means we are only $240 left towards our goal. And we have another 100 from Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Uhuru Chairman. So we're only
25.
Uhuru, Comrade Lisa Davis, $25. We have, what was it? 40 from Comrade Angelica, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Comrade Angelica.
Comrade Brendan. And we have 20 from Comrade Brendan, who's on AV here in Aquaba Hall. And shout out to all of our AV team. And okay, I'm just getting a text here, so we're going to keep the program moving. Oh, we have $100 from our very own Chair Mwezi Odom. Uhuru, Chair
Mwezi. That should count as a donation from 2 people.
That's right. That's right. Uhuru. Yeah. And we just want to thank everybody. I'm excited to announce we have surpassed our goal, comrades. $2,045 have been raised so far in this event tonight. So thank you to everybody who has contributed, who has gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And as we now move into our panel discussion, we want to encourage people, if you can, to continue contributing. And at the end of our event tonight, we will announce our total amount raised. So Uhuru, thank you so much, everybody.
Yes.
And Comrade Lisa, I just wanted to mention that, and this I think is testimony to the ongoing reality of the colonial mode of production in the world, throughout the whole world, including in Africa today, that one of our panelists, Director Tafari Mugeri, who is in occupied Azania and organizes all throughout the townships, has let us know they're having power outages for the next 2 hours. And this is something that happens all of the time as part of the colonial mode of production. And we're trying to see if we can get him on through WhatsApp to see if it's possible for him to join. But we just want to, appreciate Director Tafari and hope that we can make that happen.
That's right. We so appreciate the determination. We so appreciate his determination.
The Deputy Chair,
okay.
clear that this was part of her contribution as well.
Uhuru. We want to thank Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela for the $100 contribution.
Yes.
Uhuru. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Uhuru.
So as we work to see if it's possible to bring on Director Tafari, I'll turn it over to you, Lisa. And we want to welcome our amazing panelists, Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa and incredible comrade Efia Nwangaza. Uhuru.
Yes, Uhuru. And I know that you had read a little bit about their bios earlier. They are certainly veterans of the African liberation struggle, whether it's on the continent of Africa or within these colonized horrific states, what they call United States. But we're going to have a tremendous panel discussion. Like I said, whenever I've seen that documentary, it is so profound, and it moves me in ways that I'm sure that everybody can relate to tonight. And so we want to get into a discussion about some of the things that we have seen and how that relates to our work here and what we must do, and also how it related or how your organizing has been. And we're so appreciative to hear from veterans of the struggle. I know Sister Efia Nwangaza, she is a longtime activist. She had been a member of SNCC, and she's also an attorney, and she's done quite a bit of work in the field of human rights and the African liberation struggle. And then we have Brother S.G., looking at my notes a moment, please. S.G. Luwezi Kinshasa. He's from Congo, and he's currently in the UK, correct? But these are brilliant freedom fighters. And one of the first questions that I want to open up to ask you, and you all can just take it, but we would like for you each to tell us a little bit about your background in the African liberation movement, what some of your struggles have been, and what brings you to this work, and why you continue. Uhuru. We can start with you, Sister Efia.
Uhuru. This is such an honor and such a privilege. I want to thank you, first of all, to introducing me to that film. It was moving, deeply moving, and brought back memories and reminded me of the various stages that we've gone through in this country, and how the chairman often reminds us that our struggle was interrupted by a military defeat during the 60s and 70s, most notably in the 70s. And that despite that he and the Uhuru movement have maintained the line and to keep nurturing a revolutionary movement, building the revolutionary spirit. I am a veteran of the historic Special Committee to elect Julian Bond, former SNCC Communications Secretary and one of the first Africans elected to public office since the Reconstruction following the U.S. Civil War. Recognizing the limitations of the electoral process, the Special Election Committee became SNCC's first urban project, the Atlanta Project. And from group study and discussion, drafted and released in April of 1966, what is known as the SNCC Black Power Position Paper. The theoretical underpinnings of SNCC's eventual official position on self-determination, popularized by Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, Mukasa, Willie Ricks, and others. Fanon's Wretched of the Earth and the Battle of Algiers film were principal references. I am past co-chair of the National Jericho Movement to free U.S. political prisoners, prisoners of war, and exiles, human rights defenders forced to take take up arms, some of whom even went to Mozambique and other African countries to help and to learn and to bring those tactics back to the United States. I'm a founding member of the National Malcolm X Grassroots Movement for Self-Determination, the Black is Back Coalition, the Black Alliance for Peace, and currently I serve as the founding director of the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination and the WMXP Community Radio co-convener of the National No Cop Nation campaign to organize against the rising fascist militarization of law enforcement and state repression in the United States in preparation for minority rule. I am deeply honored to be a part of this extraordinary, game-changing campaign for African free speech and self-determination, the evolution and salvation of humanity. Asante Sana. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother S.D. Luwezi.
Yes, James Davis, or also to Chair Jason Abel. I just want to salute you for this powerful program, and I want to salute Chairman Omali and all the comrades who are watching. I want to salute also Efia Nwangaza, who just spoke before me. This is a profound program. All the program that's coming from the African Socialist Party or the organizations of the African Socialist Party, they are part of history in making. They are part of changing the world. They are not just programs for their own sake kind of programs, but they are really programs to bring a new world, and we can see evidence of it everywhere. And also want to salute all the comrades who are watching this program. And just ask you basically to unite with the goals of the programs, share the programs. If you can donate, we want you to donate so we can meet the goals set by this program. I'm Luis Kinshasa. Currently live in London here. As it's been said, I was born in Congo. The generation of people born just after the assassination of Lumumba. In fact, I was born nearly 2 years after Lumumba's assassination, a year before Mobutu, a year and a half before Mobutu comes to power. And I have been greatly influenced by what I saw around me. Growing up in the Congo, we didn't know much. I personally didn't know much about the struggle of the 60s, because in the 60s and the 70s, growing up in the Congo, there was no much saying about what's happening throughout Africa in terms of a struggle, or even what happens to the struggle for national liberation in the Congo itself. Lumumba's name was not pronounced, was nowhere. In schools, nowhere. In the communities, people didn't speak about his name. It was like, people were scared to talk about that. And in fact, he was a neighbor for our neighbor. There's a mother or a lady. Everyone refers to him as Mama Nadodo, because her son, she had only one son, Dodo. So, in Africa, they have a tendency to call you by the name of your children, maybe the firstborn, of your children. She told me about Lumumba when he was with President Kasavubu, going to Lubumbashi, where Chombe, the enemy of Lumumba, the enemy of African national liberation. Chombe, you might have seen that in the film of Raoul Peck. Chombe Didn't want Lumumba to land. The plane carried Lumumba to land in Lubumbashi. And basically, my mother, mother, told me basically Lumumba was brave, was courageous, and Kasavu, who was with Lumumba on the plane, was a coward. So that basically was my introduction to Lumumba. I never heard anything about Lumumba, didn't know anything about Lumumba until that lady, told me that. And my grandma told me the white man used to say that black people will never run the country, will never run Congo until the 4th of January. She said short men from Norway appeared in the Congo. They were so powerful they can overturn buses with one hand. And basically, she was talking about the uprising that took place on the 4th of January 1959 that was ferociously repressed by the Belgium with 300 people killed. And that basically, they changed the history of struggle in the Congo. That they propelled Lumumba basically to become what he has become. So basically, my grandma was talking to me about the role of the masses in the struggle. I didn't understand it that way at the time. So later on, I realized that's basically what he meant. Those short men with powerful hands to overturn the masses, they were the power of the masses. So that's basically my early introduction to what you can call political consciousness. And also the other part of it, basically when I was in primary school, yes, that should be mid-70s, 74, 75, 76. Congo is a neighbor of Angola, and we have we share the same population, same language and so on. And now those Africans from Angola who came as refugees in the Congo, they were part of the organization called FNLA, not for National Liberation of Angola, and they were very close to Mobutu. Because Mobutu would not allow the MPA to be in the Congo. They were expelled when Lumumba was assassinated. And basically, discussions were taking place, and I heard my uncles discussing, saying basically the FNL, they're just like Mobutu, they're thieves. So I heard them. And they were saying MPA was good because they were socialist, So that basically what I want to say in terms of how I was introduced, in terms of background to understand politics. So that stayed in my brain, socialist, and and so on. And as everyone in my generation at that time, everybody knew about the contest between the Soviet Union and the United States and the West. So that's something you couldn't skip. Everyone heard about that. And Congo with Mobutu was pro-capitalist, pro-US. So we all knew that. And so basically, the fight in Angola basically disrupt that because MPLA was known. We knew the name of MPLA, and they were with the Soviet Union. So that's how basically I would say if I had add one more thing, basically it was in 77, I think. Yeah, 77, 2 years after Angola has become independence. Now what happens is that in the in Angola, the people from Congo will run away from Mobutu's regime. They were used by the new government in Angola. Some of them used to be Chombe even to send them back in the Congo to overthrow Mobutu. And they almost succeeded. That was 1977. And the United States and Europe, France, Belgium intervened to save Mobutu's regime in 1977. And that was the beginning of the removal of the fear of Mobutu's regime. Because we were in school those days, we saw that Mobutu regime was just they couldn't defend themselves. They couldn't, we saw that. And from that time, basically, you can say political life began to change. People began to say things like that. So the repression is still there. And is as a result, basically, of the fear of the repression, you had a lot of young people basically couldn't find opportunities to go to studies and things like that. Have to leave Congo basically. So I was one of those youngsters who definitely decided to leave, to go abroad. And I ended up being in Europe. And that was my other introduction to trying to understand the political life. And in Europe, basically, my first experience, because most of us, like in England here, when you need to come straight away to England, we have to transit somewhere. People transit Switzerland, France, Belgium, and so on. So my case in France, basically, I didn't go straight to universities and things like that. Like most people did, I went to factory because you go survive, you go pay your rent, you go do everything by yourself. And when when you're very young, it had an impact on me that very quickly, very early, I could make the connection between being in the Congo and being in Europe, and so I identified definitely, easily, naturally with the people, with the workers, So, and that was really a big development for me that I can see social classes, you know, and that was helpful for me because I never read Nkrumahs. I never read all these giants of the struggle in Africa because in the Congo, you couldn't find books about Fanon and things like that, you know. So, then, you know, uh, when I decided to come to England, basically, I was already, I would say, angry, kind of young man. Revolution was already like an option in my head, but that would be another story, basically. But coming to England, I realized black people trying to organize, yeah. So I started going to meetings. It didn't take long before I realized there's a connection between what's happening in the US and here. And I discovered the biting, no, not the biting spear, the book on a reparation when one of my trip in France, and the rest is really history, because I found out through the reparation book, Reparation Now, and the African People's Society Party, basically the chairman and the work the party did answered most, if not all, of the gaps that existed between someone born in a Congo where revolution was crashed, the main leader like was killed, and how you rebuild a movement. All these questions that Chairman talks about are unresolved questions. So I found them, and that's where we are. So yeah. So Uhuru and yeah,
Sure.
that was a long introduction. I'll stop you, Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Luwezi.
Yes, very important to get this background. Comrade Jesse, do you have anything that you wanted to also ask? And also just to let the people in the room who might have some questions, maybe we could also take a couple from them, and also people online are listening. I would like to suggest, if you have access, to be able to if you have any questions, to put them in the Q&A section, if you have access to that. And the reason that I ask you to do that is just easier to track if you put it in the Q&A than in the chat section.
Uhuru, thank you for encouraging that, Comrade Lisa. And yes, we are going to be opening it up to questions from our audience, both online and here in the room. So please send in your questions, and we'll be sure to address them. And I just want to appreciate both of those statements from Comrade Efia and Secretary General Luwezi, and just the powerful history that each of you embodies of the struggle for the liberation of African people. And we wanted to turn to sort of the film that we just looked at, and in particular the words of Fanon that were used as the basis for the narration, and the film's portrayal of those struggles for African liberation in the 1960s, 70s, and into the 80s. How you see this today in terms of the ongoing struggle against colonialism and for the liberation of African people, the relevance and meaning of what was portrayed in that documentary for the struggle today. And we can start with Comrade Efia.
I am struck by the phases through which movements progressed. I was struck by the eviction from the land, and my thoughts turned to people in the South of the United States who simply wanted to register and vote, who were, like Fannie Lou Hamer, evicted from the plantations on which they worked, some of which whom had never, generation after generation, had never left the plantation. And they're moving into tent cities, and the support that was given to them from the African community from around the country, having been, like Malcolm X, the child of Garveyite organizers. We organized as high school students to collect and to send material to support to down south, Mississippi, Alabama, Southwest Georgia. I was also struck by the resilience and the determination that I saw in the South, and that I saw from those of us who supported the willingness of the people to resist and to withstand the hardships that to which they were exposed, including the beatings and the lynchings and the death, and how that continues to this day, while it's taken a different form, that the assault on the dignity and the humanity of African people here in the United States persists. That and despite that, that folks still challenge the state and resist the oppression and repression that is typical of the government. I want to acknowledge and salute the official Leonard Peltier support committee and the success, the years of struggle.
Yes.
Myself having carried that case to the United Nations in the campaign to put U.S. political prisoners, prisoners of war, and exiles on the global human rights struggle, to put to lie the position of the United States that it had and has no political prisoners. We know, of course, that there still are folk who are imprisoned in the United States, and we work for their liberation. But the success of more than 50 years of hounding and ultimately the release of Leonard Peltier, we raised the name of Imam Jamil Al-Amin, a comrade, SNCC comrade of ours, the chairman and myself, who is at the moment being held in prison, who is, for whom there is a medical transfer campaign to have him moved to a medical facility to address the cancer that is ravaging his body and has made a growth on the side of his neck such that he is unable to take solid foods. The struggle continues in this country to free political prisoners, prisoners of war, and exiles. We have to also recognize Sister Asada Shakur and express our gratitude to the people of Cuba who have for decades given her refuge and protection against the U.S. government and its effort, $2 million bounty on her head, its effort to capture and to make an example of her as they would in days gone by locking her up again. So that the struggle, by comparison, remains the same. It is simply different parties and different form. We expect with the changes that we see with the Trump administration to experience even more direct challenges. And the case of the Uhuru 3 is the tip of the spear of our right and our ability to educate ourselves and one another, to assert our dignity, worth, and humanity, as well as to enforce our human right of self-determination.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Efia. Uhuru. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Can I go ahead now?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes,
please.
Uhuru S. G. Luwezi, or Chairman. Yes, Uhuru S. G. Luwezi. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in the film. Of course, united with Comrade Efia, Nwangaza has said in terms of the colonial conditions we saw there, which is every day for most of Black people on the planet. Just unbelievable just conditions you see in Liberia, you see in Sierra Leone, you see wherever the African masses, the African workers, the African peasants live, no access to electricity. Just like Comrade Tafari cannot be in this meeting because there is no electricity where the African community is based, and South Africa exports coal, to Israel. Africa export oil. Most of the countries, many countries do export that. Gas is widely available. In fact, in Mozambique, there is war there because of the gas. So it's not that we don't have the resources. It just colonialism doesn't allow that, And I was struck by somewhere in the film, somebody asked a question. I'm not sure if it was asked directly, but say, when will we be free? I think it was somewhere in the film when the sisters were talking, and I think that was profound, and that's so profound because Chairman's work, the African People's Party, and the developments of African internationalism, the AI. The only AI that's good for humanity, the other AI is bad, and provide the answer. Because we know when this system began, and we clearly say that when the Portuguese attacked Africa 1415 in July, I think it was. But nobody can say when this system will end. We can say when it will end. With the total liberation and unification of Africa, with the end of genuine, basically total decolonization, which means the end of colonialism as a global monoproduction. We can, with a precision of mathematicians, we can definitely begin to say, we know when it's going to end, we know what needs to be done, and we're asking to do this and that because we know. And I think this is going to empower our Africans because you can't stop people who have confidence and a profound unity with their belief. And if the belief requires them to practice, basic tasks as a part of their belief, you can't stop them. And I think it is a part of the changing the world, basically giving Africans the AI, so we can stop the colonial AI. So, and I think that for me that was profound. And also the basically in the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, you will hear we used to have discussions, particularly with students at the time. And it was, we used to have some kind of, when I look back now, some of them were just, maybe stupid discussions. People will not discuss to you if you don't say you stand for armed struggle. To be radical, you go say you're for armed struggles. But we saw, they used to say Mozambique and Angola struggles represented in advanced character because it was armed struggles compared to places like Senegal, other places where there was no armed struggle. There was like a cooptation, something like that, of the African petty bourgeoisie there, since you all know African petty bourgeoisie led all the struggles. But you can see today where Angola is, where Mozambique is, the same parties that led the so-called struggle for national independence. You don't see what is the advanced character of the revolution, because the advanced character, must be exemplified by the raw elevation of the African working class themselves in that process. African workers are able to control this, they're able to control that. And overall, the struggle of African people on the planet has to reflect that too. The advanced character is to advance the African revolution where you are, but also globally, so that we can get close to our goals. And you don't hear any creativity coming from those places. On the contrary, what you see just, in Angola, life is so expensive, corruption so high, MPS so corrupted, it's incredible. That is in bed with the US and for everybody, And of course, Frelimo didn't even go that far because the process was probably disrupted a long time ago. But the Frelimo as we know it today doesn't represent anything uh, uh, progressive. And the other thing is the assault on the African liberation movement, because we saw Cabral there in the film. He was assassinated by the Portuguese. We saw Sankara there, assassinated by the French. We heard one of the, pardon?
The French and the U.S.
Yes, the French in the U.S. And also we saw one of the freedom fighter from Mozambique, I think, was saying how napalm bombs were used uh, against them. And so basically, just how the movement was military defeated, there's a lot of things to be said in terms just of what the French did, for example, in Cameroon. We talk for at least 500,000 people killed through napalm bombs. All kind of terror was used to defeat the movement in Cameroon. In Congo, they talk about 500,000 people killed. We don't even know the numbers because most of the people who struggled, because basically the Congo did not launch armed struggle for the movement to get to power. But after the movement assassination, there was an armed struggle. And that armed struggle was not against direct colonialism. It was against neocolonialism, which was an innovation at the time where the masses of peasants came forward to be organized. But the role of the United States using Cubans who fled Cuba, basically those who were anti the revolution, they're the one who piloted the bombs, the plane in the Congo, and they dropped bombs everywhere on the people with no defense. The only thing I'm trying to say is just the assault on our movement was profound, and I don't think new generations have a clear understanding how that violence was, unleashed on them. Why we have to understand the necessity to build organization, to build a party, to build basically for power, because power really, there is no doubt about it. The question of violence and the question of power in the hands of the African working class and the hands of poor peasant is a historical necessity, because we all know what they do to you when you have no power. And that's basically is some of the things we experienced. And I think in the film, when it talks about what happened in Mozambique, what happened in most of the places that were really very critical to us. And my last point is just on our ideological content. I appreciate the narrative, about Fanon book, Fanon work. But the question of just the class differences, the question of ideology, what you say, which key questions. Of course, Fanon did not live longer to continue to develop in that. But where we are now, every African has basically to come to our understanding that the necessity to have a philosophy of liberation in our time. You know, just talking about philosophy to change the way we see the world, talking about philosophy to guide our struggle, I think is just fundamental. And that's why I appreciate so much this opportunity, because everything leads to the other question that was that we have to talk about: why chairman was attacked, why the Uhuru Three under attack, why the party was attacked. As I say in the very beginning, the chairman and the party, or the party and the leadership chairman, has done an incredible work, just an incredible. Not just my generation before, but definitely my generation, because we are the one born after independence. We have to go through the books written by everybody, the Marxists, the wild left. I mean, we were always reading books, trying to see which way to go, you know. And young generation today don't have to do that, because the question of philosophy has been resolved. And that is just profound. Fanon himself, when you read Fanon, you were excited. You were inspired. You say, wow, I'm done with you, Fanon. I unite with you. But as I say, he was assassinated. He died for leukemia, but, the French were trying to kill him for so many times. So all the critical questions of the revolution, how we going to move forward, were not resolved. So that's basically some of the things I want to say. Yeah. So I think I'll stop here. Or
If I might, I'd like to add to that the importance of overcoming the cultural genocide that was waged, the psychological, focusing on the couple that the interviewer drew out about the religion. We often make the observation that when the white man came to Africa, he had the Bible, and when he left, and we had the land, and when he left, we had the Bible, and he had the land. And the psychological impact that the cultural genocide had, and further our ability to break through that with the Black is Beautiful movement here in the United States and the Black consciousness movement, as it was called in Africa, and even with Senghor, and the phrase that thank you, negritude, that it was our ability to break that psychological hold, in addition to our ability to use force, that was necessary before we were able to take up the gun, was to reclaim our humanity, reclaim our culture, reclaim our own practices, our dignity, worth, and self-respect. I didn't want that point to be lost. And the fact that we see that occurring today again, with the natural hair and the various other reclamations of Africanity. I know the chairman often points out that at one point we couldn't wear the natural hair to work until the employers discovered that it didn't matter. But we know today that it is an indication of a new era of consciousness.
May I make just a couple of observations? First of all, I want to express so much appreciation for Comrade Efia and Secretary General Luwezi and everybody, you, Comrade Jesse, and the people who've come on to this and who've made their contributions and support the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And by the way, Yeah. Okay. I want to say that I was struck, I've often talked about SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, how it was that bridge between the anti-racist civil rights movement and the anti-colonial Black Power movement. And that is absolutely true. Some of the issues that were talked about then, SNCC was grappling with those questions. And in fact, it was SNCC that introduced me to Fanon. I was in a jail cell. I was locked up in jail around this mural charge and on the phone with SNCC and talking about Fanon. They talking this Fanon person. You gotta check it out. You gotta read Fanon and what have you. And it may have had some influence on the document that Comrade Efia played a role in developing. So Fanon was, and I'm mentioning this also because the universality of the struggle of African people, is I think something that has to be understood. And Comrade S.G. Luwezi mentioned how this thing happens to Black people all the time. It's expected. It's not an anomaly. The brutality, the murder, the question of dignity. In fact, there's an assumption that we have no dignity. That comes with the colonial question. There's nothing dignified about African people. And so much stuff that happens to us, even how, people, we talking now and having this discussion based on the attack on July 22nd, July 29th, 2022. That created the Uhuru 3 and this assault that was made on us. But in 1996, they came 300 strong with airplanes and helicopters in St. Petersburg, Florida, to attack us because we were protesting then too, the murder of Africans, which is normal. It's what's supposed to happen. What's not supposed to happen is protesting it. In fact, they would kill Black people. And the person who became the mayor, who was the father of the guy who is now the mayor, who was then a member of the city council in St. Petersburg, when they killed a Black person, the police would come where people were gathering, and this guy would be in the back seat of the police car. The responsibility of Black leaders is to calm people down, is to keep Black people from fighting back, and that's what we are expected to do. So you're not supposed to come out and protest the murder. You're not supposed to bring attention to the fact that there's something wrong with this, even to your own people. So I just think that that's something that I really want us to perhaps kind of understand. I think it's so integral to the consciousness of people in the world, not just in this country, but globally. There was a time in the world, especially in the 1960s, people saw the African Revolution, including right here in this country, all around the world. People saw this as a magnificent occurring. In fact, there was a time I used to travel. I'm on an airplane. I'm someplace in another country, and people say, "What happened? What happened to the Black Revolution?" Because this was the thing. And I'm not talking about Africans saying this. I'm talking about white people, from other countries recognize the significance of the Black Revolution, because this was the heart of every contradiction that people who were conscious was experiencing. It was here. And the Black Revolution in this country offered the most promise for change in the world than anything that was happening. I mean, we saw Vietnam, et cetera, but it was here that caused Vietnam. It was here that Algeria murder required, for maintaining. So that was a real important thing. And there was a time when we recognized this. And when I saw, so I wanted to say that, and Comrade S.G. Luwezi, we travel all over Europe and trying to build, in the process of building the African Socialist International. We traveled everywhere. We had conferences every year, at least one conference that was happening in London. We were in Belgium. We were, just every place it was possible. France, we held the first African Liberation Day mobilization in Paris, France. That ever happened, we did that, et cetera. And we're trying to reunite the African people because we concluded a long time ago. Here you got France that's controlling something like 14 different African so-called states or so-called countries. And then people don't have a problem with that. But when they say Africa for Africans at home and abroad, when they say we're organizing Africans, the whole lot, then something is wrong with us. That how can you talk about Africa as a continent? It's not a country. It's not this and that. And so people with so-called leftists, so-called nationalists, Pan-Africanists, who, that's another story, would have all kinds of problems with this perception, but they weren't saying that how weird it is that France is controlling 14 different entities that they call countries, or what England is doing, all over Africa, etc. It's just we were weird because we were saying Africa for Africans at home and abroad. And so we concluded a long time ago that the African Revolution had really outrun its capacity when fought within the context of the borders that had been created for us by the imperialists. Whether those borders were here inside the United, separating us from African people in the United States and other parts of the world, borders inside Africa itself, that those borders had to be broken down. And that's part of what it is that we've been doing. And so, Comrade Tafari is there in South Africa, and we are in the townships in South Africa, bringing Africans back together again. One of the reasons they attacked us, the reason they attacked Garvey, the reason this tendency that we represent is old. It's been here for a while. And SNCC is one of the forces that kept it alive. And I'm really proud to say that. I want to say that, finally, I'm going to shut up, really. But there's some concern by a lot of people. Comrade Efia mentioned, a thing that we can expect, a greater aggression coming from the Trump administration. And that's probably true. I mean, we've seen some evidence of that, but we'd be in bad shape if Harris had been elected. We'd really be in bad shape. And we were attacked at 5 o'clock in the morning, pre-dawn, under the Harris regime. And it was the Democratic Party that started this Russia stuff. If you remember how they talked about how Trump would refuse to accept the outcome of an election. Well, when Trump beat Clinton the first time, it was Clinton who came out and said that, and the Democratic Party, that Trump didn't really win. It was the Russians who did it. Russia. That's where this mantra first came, but put forward. And if Harris had won this election, we wouldn't have this discussion about the Uhuru 3 now. The fact is that because the system would have validated itself by putting Harris in place. And this is the distinction between the fight against racism and against colonialism. To the extent, and I participate in this fight against racism. I fought for the civil rights stuff and voting rights, etc. But the point is that the success of the struggle against racism, Harris is a part of the success of the struggle against racism. And the 3 generals who control the U.S. military are examples of the success of the struggle against racism. The fact is that they will allow you to come onto the system of colonialism that oppresses and kills Black people regularly. So it obscures the struggle against colonialism when we got a Harris, when we got an Obama, when we got all these other folk. They obscure the real contradiction and confuse people for a minute. But the people are less confused today, I'm happy to say, and I've talked too much, but Owusu Sodoki, Howard Fuller was his name. Did you know him, Efia?
Yeah, he was from Philadelphia.
No, Owusu was from Wisconsin.
I'm thinking of another Fuller. I'm thinking of who was a part of the Black Arts movement. The Fuller who
I know.
was
Yeah,
a part of the Black Arts.
Pete. What's his name?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think I know you.
It'll come
Howard
to me.
Fuller. Yeah, he went to Mozambique while the armed struggle was happening in Mozambique. He changed his name to Owusu Sodoki. And while there, he traveled some with the Frelimo, and he asked them what could Africans in the United States do, and it was Frelimo who said that should build the African Liberation Day mobilization, should do this African Liberation Day, win as much support as possible so that people could give material support to the armed struggle that was happening in Africa at that time. And so that's what Owusu did. Owusu came back to the United States. He worked with some people, other people, because there was no real viable, revolutionary movement at the time, but a whole bunch of entities were out there in small circles doing stuff. And I was one of the persons who was on this original coordinating committee, National Coordinating Committee to build African Liberation Day. And so that's where the African Liberation Day thing started, to raise money for struggles that was happening in Mozambique, that was happening in Angola, Rhodesia, South Africa, etc. That's where it all came from. And so I just wanted to say that he was there in Mozambique, and we had that kind of connection, which I think is really important. Cabral, I did not know Cabral. Sankara, we knew Sankara because we actually sent somebody to Burkina Faso to meet with Sankara to try to get him to host the first African Socialist International Congress there. They killed him before that could happen. But Cabral, somebody we know in common, Efia. I remember this brother, saying that Cabral, had told him, that they control a certain territory in Mozambique, but I don't believe him. He said, I don't believe him. I don't believe it's true, etc. Because this person knows everything and knew everything. And so anyway, they killed Cabral. He was himself at the time was living in Africa, and one of the real areas where comrades from Guinea-Bissau were organizing, Cabral's forces were organizing. There was a real area, and I think that may have been, where was Cabral killed?
When?
Does anybody remember?
Was it not Cape Verde?
He wasn't killed in Cape Verde. No, he wasn't killed in Cape Verde. He was in a real base. Where?
He was in Guinea. He was killed.
He was killed in Guinea. No. Guinea-Conakry.
Okay.
Guinea-Conakry. And that's where, we knew people in Guinea-Conakry, and that's where he was killed. Of course, we know that Cabral and those forces were quite successful. And Cabral had these debates with the Portuguese left, who were telling Cabral that the struggle against the Portuguese fascism was what they had to be involved in. He said that if we can defeat Portuguese fascism, because there was a fascist state in Portugal at this time, that colonialism in Africa would go away. And Cabral said, well, we hate fascism. We support the struggle against fascism, but we don't know about that truth. But here's what we do know, that if we destroy colonialism, fascism will fall. The fascists will fall. And 7 months after the Declaration of Independence in Guinea-Bissau, Portuguese fascism collapsed because everything rests upon the foundation of colonialism. And sometimes I think we, every time the white system gets trouble, every time the contradiction between colonizers gets trouble and complex, and the features of colonialism begin to creep in some way or another into the colonizer society, then they scream fascism, fascism, fascism. But it wasn't fascism. The struggle that Comrade Efia was talking about, getting these political prisoners recognized in Africa, the struggles of all these Black people in prison in this country, they never call that fascism. The struggle when they killed the young brother Mike Brown here, it wasn't called fascism. It wasn't a police killing a day, it wasn't fascism. They come up with the concept of fascism when it was something that begins to penetrate this and the possibilities of reality with white people. And then it's fascism. Then they say fascism, and I got to fight against fascism because there's a sector of the white population leadership that they want me to fight for, but they never would fight against colonialism. They didn't join the Panthers fighting against colonialism. They didn't join any of us. In fact, the more we talked about colonialism, the more the white left distanced itself from our struggle until now. Until now, what we've been able to do with the struggle, the Uhuru 3, et cetera, and we've changed that a bit. And I've talked too much, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, comrades.
Let me raise the names Sekou Odinga and Matulu Shakur, who also went to Mozambique to participate in the struggle. And the Black Panther Party, Eldridge Cleaver and Kathleen Cleaver and others who set up offices in Algeria on behalf of our struggle. The interaction between the two is between the two struggles, the similarities and the enhancements and inspiration that we share, that was mutual between us, has yet to be recognized and affirmed and learned from. I would say with regard to the comment that General Secretary Luwezi made with the young people don't have to have do the reading that we did. No, they have to do the reading that we did. That's part of the problem is they think they got all the answers. Not that we didn't think that we had all the answers, but at least at this point in time, we're writing our own history in such a way that it is instructive and allows them to be, or enables them to be able to take the struggle to the next level.
Uhuru, I just want to say, we have a question from Jamal Degaines, and he says, can you talk about Liberia and its contradictions at this time? He didn't particularly...
Say that again, from Jamal who?
Jamal Degaines, hopefully I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, but he's asking, he says, can you talk about Liberia and its contradictions at this time?
Come on, Luwezi, you want that?
What I can say just briefly is that Liberia has been led for some time now by someone called George Weah. George Weah is a footballer. He's an international renowned footballer. That's why he came from a poor area, and he came to Europe, and he became one of the greatest footballer in Europe, winning trophies and things like that. He went back to Liberia, and he used his popularity as a footballer basically to win election. But our problem in Africa, as everyone knows, is not because we don't have enough footballers or we don't have enough sports, great people. You know, history gave us great sport people, the Muhammad Ali and the Pele and so on. But our problem is to solve the problem of the revolution. And George Weah didn't come to power to solve the problem of the revolution. He came to power because he knew, and people around him and people wanted to solve their own problems through Weah. They know if Weah can run for elections, being the most popular, the most recognizable African from Liberia in the world, he will win the election easily, and that happened. But our connection, our relationship to what we've been saying, the global mode of production has no change. And George Weah basically represent a sector of the African petit bourgeoisie. His aspiration was always, to become, to succeed in life, basically a personal success or individual success. He achieved that in football, he achieved that in politics, but for conditions to change in Liberia, it's going to be the same as in all countries. Black people have to involve in a struggle to end our relationship with the global monoproduction. The African people, the African working class, has to go to power. And for African people to go to power, they have to have a revolutionary organization on the ground. This is not going to be an exception. And that revolution has to be tied to the whole African revolution. And that's the essence of African internationalism, that we need the African working class to lead the struggle, not a footballer, because the footballer, we're not against footballers, but because the footballer represents just a sector of the African petit bourgeoisie like George Weah represent. And the African working class, if really engaged in changing the condition of the people, you know what? The violence the people experience in Liberia, under so-called civil war, is a violence you see in most the African countries today, in most impoverished neighborhood where they have imposed horizontal violence that prevent our young people from even knowing what is behind what is beyond their own community. Can you just imagine you living in a poor place in Africa? Yeah. You cannot leave your neighborhood because you will be killed if you go to another neighborhood. This no stuff is just happening in New York, in Los Angeles. No, right now in Africa, in the most impoverished areas, the United States and all the experts in the kind of tendency welfare, they have been able to introduce that kind of horizontal violence. And George Roy is going to use to solve that. And this has to be solved by a revolutionary party. People will be able to put the advanced fighters on the ground, mobilize educated people for power really in the hands of the African working class. This historical mission, you know, there is no way basically condition in Liberia is going to change, you know, in qualitatively outside a struggle led by advanced party of the African working class, and this will be advocating. This has to be the African People's Party, this party, African Socialist International. You know, basically with our AI, you know, of the African working class, it's not going to happen. And I don't know who asked this question. We're facing universal contradiction that Black people will know no peace, no dignity. That's where we are until we change our relationship with the global mode of production known as colonialism. We have to change it. The struggle, we watched the documentary, the struggle against colonialism in Africa was led by the African people bourgeoisie. They negotiated power. They used armed struggle or different tactics to negotiate power. You heard even the great Cabral saying somewhere they are ready to negotiate. And you have to distinguish Cabral as a theoretician, you know, as a great leader, and also his organization, being an organization of African people bourgeoisie. He's an advanced character. Nobody can deny the contribution of Cabral, but the organization he represented, it was the African people bourgeoisie organized in that organization, and they went to power in Guinea, just like George Weah went to power in Liberia. He didn't go to power in Liberia as a revolutionary force. He didn't go to power in the process to make the revolution did. So if you want to change in Liberia, we have to go to power in the revolutionary process to change the condition of the people, of the African working class, and doing so to advance the revolution until we can basically overcome colonialism as a global mode of production. Any other way, it will be just a reform, by reform that will maintain colonialism as a global mode of production. And we're not against the reforms, but as long as it's done to advance the process of African revolution, that's cool. You know, yeah, that's what I can say. Well,
I just think it's really important to say that there is no easy way. There is no magic pill or anything like that. There is no easy way, and that Africans, in some instances, have been lulled into a certain kind of exceptionalism, that everybody else had to make revolution to be free, etc. But somehow, if you know the right things about where the secret document is hidden that says that we should be free and that we really are the true owners of this and that, you know, I mean, just all kinds of things, or some not extremely outlandish, but you know, on the face of them. But we're not going to have to get to freedom any way that anybody who's ever wanted freedom got it. There's not going to be any easy way to freedom. I say that, but I don't mean it exactly like that, because I believe that the contradictions of this mode of production, there's a whole transformation that's happened with the political and economic configuration of the planet Earth. And you know, if we, you know, examine it, it becomes almost obvious. It's the thing that thrusts Trump into significance, and Trump comes into significance in part in the first time with his attack on the whole Atlanticist bloc that's dominated the whole world, more or less, for almost the last 80 years. This arrangement that came about at the end of the Second Imperialist World War, that created NATO, the United Nations, all of these trade relationships, the IMF, the World Bank, all of that, and dominated by the United States. That's been the thing well, we have this democratic process of the colonizers who dominate the world. They had an election. They had a parliamentary process with the United Nations. The thing was to guarantee that they could continue this incessant need to redivide the world without having to kill each other to do it. So they could talk about peace because everybody who had power of significance was on this Security Council that could veto anything else that was coming from all the other countries in the General Assembly. These guys they ran it for all practical purposes, et cetera. And so, you had this kind of setup, and Trump came into power attacking NATO, attacking a whole bunch of other stuff like that, and which made him a threat to the Atlanticists. They really saw him as a threat. I don't think they see him as a threat in the same way, because the Atlantis bloc was created for the purpose of one critical thing, was to keep Russia, to contain, if necessary, crush Russia, Soviet Russia at the time, that had won all of this support from at least in the imagination of workers and oppressed peoples of the world, et cetera. And so this was a real problem for them. But what Trump, and so they isolated Russia. They kept economically, Russia didn't have access to the resources coming from Africa, from the Americas, from all these other places like the colonizers did. And so Russia has serious economic problems. It was rich in terms of natural resources, but they were isolated. And they thought they had Russia out of it until Putin stepped forward. And that changed the equation in so many different ways. And so, but they still had a problem. The Russians did, because nobody could easily trade with Russia, because they had to go against U.S. sanctions in order to do it. And so now when Trump comes in, he attacks them. Trump's now attacked the United Nations and all this other stuff, but he's the one who opened the door, and he's made it easier, because he just won this re-election. He's made it easier for any of the European powers to have a relationship with Russia. Now they can have a relationship, because all of them want the resources of Russia, not just Trump and his forces. They want those resources from Russia. Trump's opened the door, made it possible. And since he's made it possible for them to come in, he doesn't have to fight them in the same way he had to fight them before. And they can embrace Trump, and they can come up with a new deal in terms of how to deal with Russia. And that's going to modify in some ways this relationship between Russia and the United States, et cetera. I've talked it a lot, but yeah, that's part of what it is that we're looking at in terms of how everything is changing in the world. And you look at what's going to happen with the Trump regime, you don't know exactly what's going to happen, because Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. And before we go to, I think, what will be our last question, I just want to see, Comrade Efia, anything that you wanted to contribute on this question, which was, I think the question was originally relating to Liberia, but or anything else that was discussed up to this.
When the question with regard to Liberia came up, my mind immediately went back to the comment, the response of the chairman to my overlooking a Kamala Harris win, and the fact that that they've always been a managerial class, which would serve the interests of the colonizer. And he's right in that it would have been, we would be in a more difficult, certainly psychologically difficult space had she won, because we'd be back to where we were with Obama, which was deadly. That's all I would say, but it just keeps moving. It's a global movement. The system of white supremacy and colonialism is a global system, and with and that we must look at it phenomenologically, look at it as colonialism, the system of colonialism, if we're going to defeat it.
Uhuru.
Fanon made a statement about the psychological aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm.
He said that in the colonized, in order to be cured, have to kill the colonizer.
Yes.
he said that's the cure for the colonized. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
I don't know if SG, or anybody
Uhuru,
else.
SG.
How are we on
Yes.
time?
Yes, we were.
But so
Sorry.
Uhuru, go ahead, SG.
Yeah, I just wanted to say just quickly a couple of things is on the question of violence. We the violence Africans are going through in the hands of the African people bourgeoisie
Yeah.
cannot be overlooked because the betrayal of African people bourgeoisie is profound. When everybody understand what African people have been going through in the last 600 years, then the betrayal of African people bourgeoisie, I mean, carries, you know, a deeper significance. I'll take an example, just what's going on in the Congo. We have a situation where African people bourgeoisie, in terms of Museveni and Kagame, that publicly made statements like they oppose reparation. I mean, African leader who is in opposition to reparation right in the middle of Africa, and it does not come under serious criticism. And Will Kagame, who said, responding to journalists, he said, all these centuries, white people have been looting Congo. Now it's time for black people to do so. I mean, it's time for black people to be, well, basically, it's time to be like Leopold II. I mean, it's just crazy argument, but that's real, which means that violence against the people is not like a taboo for African people bourgeoisie. They will maim, they'll use the same colonial structures inherited from the colonizers to maintain colonialism as long as they get the share. And that takes us to the question, is related to the question that someone asked about Liberia. The fundamental question is to appreciate the leader, is how do you advance African national liberation struggle? How do you advance the revolution? How does Museveni, how does Kagame advance the African revolution? They don't. They respond to that question, how do you maintain colonialism as a monoproduction in Africa? By becoming neo-colonialists, by joining the colonizers. They respond to that question. And so the question of what class you represent, because Fanon criticized African people bourgeoisie a lot. As I say, he died, he couldn't develop anymore. But this question, the responsibility of African people bourgeoisie in extending colonialism for another 60 years or 70 years, this historical betrayal has to be more internalized in the movement, well spread, well understood, so the young people coming in, who are joining the struggle, basically they join the struggle with a clear understanding. Their role is to advance the African national liberation struggle, to advance the African revolution. That's really fundamental. See what's going on throughout Africa, the US, in the Caribbean, wherever we go. And I think that's is an important thing. And of course, the role of the violence. We already said colonialism means violence. You cannot have colonialism without violence. It's just impossible. How can you see the land of the indigenous in Americas peacefully? It's not possible. How can you get the coltan, the diamond, the oil out of Africa peacefully? We saw it in the film. Even just Africans trying to resist the exploitation. They mate with violence, humiliation. that family was dropped out of nowhere, with deep poverty, and, so basically just the question of violence, the question of daily humiliation. We don't talk much about that. Black people don't talk about it publicly, about the humiliation Africans are going through every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you are at work. Sometimes your mind just is thinking about humiliation. Life is unbearable under colonialism. There is no dignity whatsoever for us. And anything we do, to stop that is justified, And as someone say that we have the right to do anything to Leopold and the Belgian based on what Leopold II did in Congo. I don't know who wrote it, but somebody wrote that, and all Africans can say that. Yeah, Uhuru.
But I think it was an important point that Comrade Luwezi made, because we came out of this struggle, because even Lumumba at one point felt like the way to make this struggle in Congo was for every African to make friends with a Belgian. That's how to get out of it. I mean, we always people seek the easy solution. People don't look for a hard way to solve a problem. And so even that kind of thing came from Lumumba. But we came out of this process where we had imposed on us the whole philosophical nonviolence, that we couldn't fight back. We had to, in fact, that we made us noble if we suffered the oppression and et cetera. And so there was a whole generation, especially during this time, that grew up and said, hell no. And actually, it became something that defined whether one was really revolutionary or not, whether one was willing to pick up a gun or do something to that effect. And so that made a big impact. And I think about, so that made a huge impact. We had visions of revolutionary forces in the bush and other places, engaged in serious struggle. I mean, this magnificent movie that was made about the spook who sat by the door, and the book that was, this was stuff that really resonated, because people were tired of this kind of humiliation, just being stepped on, spat upon. What was the name of that brother who they killed in New York for selling the cigarette? The singer cigarette. Remember how they killed him? It's not just that they choked him to death. That was one thing, but you see how they were driving his head into the cement. It's an ongoing exemplary kind of violence. It's to say, this is what would happen to you. And cutting off hands, and this is normal, and prisons filled with Black people. You can't even get to see a relative because they put the prison somewhere in a community that's going to make white people rich and enhance their economic development, and it's way out in the boondocks and stuff like that. This is the kind of stuff that we live with normally as colonized people, so much so that it is norm. It's a norm, people are not surprised when Black people die in great numbers, or we are humiliated. There's little empathy, because there's something that's deep inside the consciousness that comes with being colonized and living within a colonial mode of production. The so-called superstructure, promotes what happens to us, and it promotes not only with white people, but African people. Also think it's normal the kind of stuff that happens to us on a regular basis. This is a part of the struggle. But I just want to say that out of this is that we got to organize in these communities on the ground. We got to take the struggle to the people on the ground. That's why working in the townships in South Africa is so important. That's why working on the ground, in various places where our movement is located is critical, because that's where the power is finally. And that's the thing that's going to make a difference of whether we survive this stuff and whether we can win. And I know we can win. In fact, I know we are winning, because I understand something about, the makeup of the social system, what constructed it, and I know what can deconstruct it. Mm-hmm. So I have so much appreciation for all of you who've been here with us and in this meeting. And I think we are on the cusp of something, magnificent. And we just have to make this struggle, because what we've seen is the Atlanticist bloc, that stuff is is still under assault. Trump is, his emissaries are running around bullying people, threatening people, et cetera, threatening leaders. But every leader in every country that he threatens, the people in those countries experience a certain kind of rage and humiliation, even at their belly crawling leadership. And then you've got the heroism of Palestine. People
Absolutely.
are standing up and resisting and showing. And we just talked about Leonard Peltier, and I think it's really important for us to remember that they locked up Leonard Peltier. They put him in jail. But that was an assault on the indigenous people. That's an ongoing struggle that they continue to make against the indigenous people. And they would have us think it's just Leonard Peltier killing some FBI agents or something to that effect. But it's a continuous war, the attack they made on us, on July 29th. That was an attack on Africa, the African Revolution. They used us as vehicles with the assumption that they had the ability to do it. We say hands off Uhuru.
Yeah.
Africa.
To send the signal
yeah.
that they always do. I think we should also recognize the useful and make useful the posthumous pardon of Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
And the significance of that in the scheme of things as well.
Well, I want to say this is. I'm keeping this meeting going on, and we have to end it. But the thing that I don't know if you saw it, I think it was the Washington Post did a piece either today. It was either Washington Post or New York Times. I think it was the Washington Post, and they've discovered that the real thing that was holding up this pardon for Garvey was that they thought he was anti-Semitic.
Oh my!
And what they've got now is what they've discovered is a letter from a Jewish fellow from way back then who said that Garvey was not anti-Semitic, and the descendants of this Jewish person came forward and talked about how Garvey was not anti-Semitic, and et cetera, and that's why they say it. So anyway, they are not just giving Biden the responsibility, the credit for this. They're also giving Zionists credit for the thing with Garvey. So it won't work. It's tired. It's really tired.
I do agree.
Yeah.
They should pardon John Brown.
Yeah.
That's what they should pardon John Brown. To me, Black revolutionaries, they can't pardon, period. But pardon John Brown. I'd like to see them do that.
Uhuru, this has been such a profound discussion, and I appreciate everybody that has stayed on it and continues to ask questions. We are coming to the end, so I wanted to just take the last two questions that we got and kind of bundle them together for our panelists to speak to, and then we'll move forward into our announcements and close out. But we had a question from Katrina, who said, "Can I ask about the theft of coltan, thieving by big tech corporations like Apple, and speak about how these companies use African people to fight each other for the right to export it to Apple on the cheap, and what struggles are occurring to hopefully counteract this?" And then the other question was from Robert, who said, "Uhuru, my wife is from Kenya. We go back every year to visit. The masses there suffer, while Ruto is a sellout.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the contradictions in Kenya?"
Yeah. I forgot the year I was in Kenya. It was at the time. What year was that?
2010, Chairman.
2010. And at that time, the repression was heavy in Kenya. In fact, we couldn't even announce that we were having a meeting, couldn't pass out flyers or anything like that because the people were afraid of repression. But nevertheless, even without that, the hall was packed with Africans who came out. And when they had sent agents in to disrupt the meeting. And so while I was speaking, these forces were in the audience, and they got to be disruptive. And so there were also Rastafarians in the in the audience, and so I just went Jah, and the Rastafarian went You know, they rose up and they came with these huge sticks. They walking with the sticks and they surrounded these guys, right? These agents, and then took them out of the thing. But it was an extraordinary event in Kenya, and people were ready to take on and be a part of this. But we had our own organizational weaknesses that we brought there with us that made it impossible for us to do everything we could in Kenya. Kenya is extraordinary. And Kenyan just came into the door of the Uhuru House here about 3 days ago, and of course he saw Swahili words on things that we have, on our buildings, and came in and he said he's ready to go to work. So Kenya, Comrade Luwezi can say more about that. Yeah, you're right about Ruto, of course, and he has been working hand in glove. They talked about sending troops into Haiti to suppress Africans in Haiti and what have, because the white man can't go in his own face. So he needs some of us to go for him. And that's really interesting that we talk about this, because here you got the white man, the Europeans, the colonizers, recognizing that we can send an African from Kenya to go to Haiti to oppress Africans there. But our Black nationalists and et cetera don't believe that Africans can be connected directly on our own to build for it. Comrade Luwezi, I don't know if anybody else had anything to say about the Kenya question.
Yes, well, Chairman. Yes, I still remember you saying, "Jah." That was and they say Rastafari. But yeah, it was. Yeah, what I like to just to add is Kenya sees itself as the regional power, and the United States, as you know, have made Rwanda and Uganda as like the key allies in the region, and Kenya, the Kenyan African People Bourgeoisie, we really never accepted that, and you could see the kind of rapprochement between Kenya and China. And China has invested a lot. They build all these railways from Nairobi to Mombasa, I think it is. And the Kenyan tourists, you have as many as Kenyan tourists going to, as many as Chinese tourists, maybe more now, going to Kenya than U.S. tourists. So they used to rely on the U.S. tourists a lot. Now they can rely on the Chinese tourists, just the influence of China, and allows the African People Bourgeoisie basically to have access to more our resources, and also in terms just of a regional power. I'd say Kenya sees themselves as a regional power. They want to be present in the Congo, for example. As Chairman said, in Haiti, and the U.S. also is playing that kind of a competition. If you want to be the regional power, for me, you go do more than what Uganda and Rwanda is doing. And I don't know to what extent the Kenyan African People Bourgeoisie will go, but I expect Ruto basically to be under Biden, the Democrat leadership. That's what I was observing. I'm not sure if this will stay the same under the leadership of Trump. And also Kenya is an interesting place. They have some industrial capacity. So you have a sizable industrialized African working class, not to some extent as South Africa, but which makes them readily able to mobilize, easily to mobilize. The more workers are organized, the more they are concentrated in factories, the better it is to organize them, and the more ready you can feel the impact. And I won't be surprised when you saw a couple of months ago, the massive demonstration took place in Kenya, the working class playing a role in that. But the only thing is, the working class in African world doesn't have access to African internationalism. That's a limitation of anything they can do. Because in terms of history, we have already entered a new era, the era of the mass struggle under the leadership of the African People Bourgeoisie, under the leadership of African working class, basically under the leadership of African internationalism. And that's basically also one thing I'm convinced everyone should see that. The chairman has summed it up many times. The attack on Uhuru 3, the attack on the chairman is an attack on Africa. And you should think of Kenya, for example. You should think of South Africa. You should think where the working class is readily concentrated. Maybe Nigeria too, which means the strike can develop very quickly. And because we have to be really aware, history is moving fast. As Garvey said, we don't know when the time of Africa comes. Is in the whirlwind, he said. And that's what we're looking at. Nobody knows. Things can just spread like wildfire just very quickly if the masses have access to African internationalism and there's a leadership on the ground that can take that forward. Regarding the question of coltan, the bourgeoisie, the colonial bourgeoisie is talking about it as if it's something they just discovered. You have to be aware that in the 90s, on the 1st October 1990, Uganda launched under the disguise of Rwandan Patriotic Front an assault of Rwanda. But that was the United States, not just trying to dislodge France, but that was the United States basically working on a long-term project, the control of strategic mineral under basically the control of the US. The United States intends to control what is recognized as strategic. Coltan is one of those strategic minerals that the US, Pentagon, all those kind of institutions consider as strategic. They will go to war with you to maintain the control of it. You have cobalt as well. And coltan and cobalt, they have the particularities of being highly concentrated in the Congo. Congo has like more than 60%, almost 70% of it, followed by Canada 6%. So there is no match there. And Congo seems to have 60 to 80% concentration of it, and it's critical, as you know, for laptops, mobile phones, anything that requires high resistance to heat. We're talking about over 2,500 degrees Celsius, something like that, very high temperature. And the United States launched the war to get to Rwanda, but that was one phase of the long-term project. The project was to come to Congo, to disrupt Congo. So going to Rwanda was just like, you may say, phase one. Because if you study how that war was conducted, you will see that it was clear. Also, if you listen to the United States, I don't have a statement in front of me here, but you go statement made by the United States leaders, by the Rwanda leaders, that the overall goal was to come out to Congo. So clearly you're looking at the war, it's a U.S. Project. Whatever is happening now, the U.S. is in phase. They know what's going on. Arming them, training them. When I say training Ugandan army, training Rwandan army, provide them intelligence, satellite images, all these things. Even having Africans from the US in the army, fighting on the ground there. So that's one thing we want everyone to be clear. That is a United States war for control of African resources, and it's not limited to Congo. It's the same as the war that's going on in West Africa or East Africa or Southern Africa and Mozambique. All these different wars are connected. It's the United States effort to militarily control African resources, to overthrow Gaddafi. All these come into play. They're all part of the same overall project. Now, what's the intervention? Will be at this stage, the consciousness, you say, of the people is developing. Even when you saw images from African masses going attacking the U.S. embassies, there is some aspect of manipulation there too. But overall, the masses on the ground, they are more or less clear that the United States and is leading the West, France, all of them, they're there to loot Africa, to loot Congo. People understand that. But the problem is intervention that need to take place. What's the direction? What's the long-term project? That is critical because there is a struggle going on inside the African people bourgeoisie right now. in the Congo, outside Congo, those who refuse to support Felix Tshisekedi, they say he cannot lead anything in protection of Congo. He should resign straight away. And those who are saying, no, you should just for the moment be with him because what needs to happen, we need to fight and get the Rwandan troops out of Congo or something like that. You also have another sector who is a conscious part of the continuity of that project, who are already with the United States, they're with Rwanda. The name of Nanga, for example, there is a man called Nanga. He was responsible for declaring the winner of the national elections. He's the one who declared Felix Tshisekedi the winner, although he knew he was not the winner. Now he's saying it because Tshisekedi tried to outmaneuver them. But now he's saying it, yes, sure, he didn't win the election. So you have all these forces. Now the African working class has to intervene independently. And that's the effort. This we're working on. All our intervention will definitely go along. Basically, our intervention is basically to intervene in the sense that the masses have to be led independently. We have to have our own project, and our project is to continue the African national liberation struggle, and the African working class has to develop its own leadership, and that's basically the project of the party. So we go with the project, African internationalism, African working class, led project. Wherever we go in alliance with everybody else, we have to have our own capacity. And the most important thing is we need to break the borders from here to what's happening around Africa, and from here to Congo itself. We have to be on the ground in the Congo itself. And opportunities are there, but they just have to be done skillfully, things like that, because the masses are ready. The masses are ready. I'll stop there.
I just want to, just unite with that and just say that Comrade Tafari could not be in this meeting, but part of his responsibility is organizing the party throughout the continent of Africa. I mean, that's a primary responsibility that he has. And people are regularly contacting and trying to be a part of the African Socialist International in different parts of Africa. And sometimes we have more and sometimes less, depending on on different things and what have you. But from Namibia to Sierra Leone to Liberia to various provinces in South Africa to Ghana to Nigeria, various places we're building in these processes. And the thing is that that's the way out. We see it is to take it on the ground. It's organizing people on the ground. This is Efia. This is SNCC style in so many ways. This is what we're building among the people, building actual organization on the ground to become so that the African Revolution is no longer perceived to be, even by those who are making it, several different revolutions. If we're going back, Garvey, this is what we have to build. So I want to say that. And the other thing I want to say is that that the Kenya, also the Africans are extraordinarily militant there in Kenya, and that's been our experience and what we've been able to perceive. That if you remember, we've seen several rebellions in Kenya of significant magnitude, and so those things are trying to happen, and like this, it was this kind of thing that brought us to St. Louis. It's this kind of thing that took us to Philadelphia, the bombing in Philadelphia, and it's taken us to various places on the continent of Africa too, because it just demonstrates a certain readiness and alertness among the masses of people, and we have to penetrate and take revolutionary organization and ideology into those places. And there is more consciousness, and people are beginning to raise questions in this country about Apple. And how much blood is is being shed. I mean, this has been part of my presentation now for years, like how Steve Jobs is being credited with all of this stuff, except for the murder of African people in Congo, where all this coltan comes from to make Apple, and what it what it is, you know. So I just wanted to make those observations. You had somebody else.
Uhuru.
Could
Comrade Efia.
Yeah.
could I?
Yes.
Please.
I wanted to remind us that the United States was defeated in Vietnam because we gutted and challenged their ability to wage war abroad. And while we can look at AFRICOM and we can look at CENTCOM, the question that we have to deal with and we're responsible for dealing with, and it brings us back to the Uhuru 3, is that we have to cut off the head of the snake in the belly of the snake. That we cannot overlook the particular position that we are in that allows us to fulfill our responsibilities to humanity by disabling the lead colonizer. And it's the Uhuru 3 that has, as I said earlier, is the tip of the spear that brings the consciousness, that has created the vehicle, and that the example that is necessary in order to do that. So while we can talk about what's going on in Africa, we can talk about what's going on in the Caribbean and what role the Chinese are playing, the most important role is the one that we are or are not playing.
Yes.
For sure.
Uhuru.
Thank you so much. Incredible panel, incredible discussion. Thank you so much, Comrade Efia, Nwangaza, Secretary General Luwezi, Kinshasa, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And we do want to give a shout out to Director Tafari Mugeri, who wasn't able to be on due to the colonial conditions there in occupied Azania. And I wanted to also, I'll turn it over to you, Lisa, but I just wanted to shout out Ward Churchill and Natsu Saito, who have been tuning in on this program, and we just want to appreciate both of them, just incredible forces in the anti-colonial struggle, and who've been there every step of the way in the hands-off Uhuru Fightback.
Yes,
so
yes.
Uhuru.
Also, we have a new total, $2,210. Uhuru!
All right.
Uhuru.
Yes.
Uhuru.
Yes. We met our goals, at least for right now. But of course, we're continuing onward no matter what. We have come to the conclusion of this extremely powerful and profound documentary and discussion. Every question is like a whole other webinar. And I just want to say that the Black is Back Coalition next Saturday, February 8th, and we'll send something out about that. But we are going to be continuing this discussion further. We are going to be talking about the region of the Sahel. And so we're going to get stuff out. So please tune in for that as well. That's going to be very important. Brother S.G. Luwezi, I believe that you've been invited to speak with us, to present with us. And I also believe
the 9th of February?
Yeah, February 8th, next Saturday. We're going to send out more information about that for sure. But anyway, this has been a very, very dynamic, powerful discussion. I want to just say that you can save the chat. There should be 2-3 little dots at the bottom of the chat window, because people have been putting very, very powerful information in the chat. Also, tomorrow, we are going to be having the Black is Back Year in Review. That's going to be from 12 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. You can go to tinyurl.com/BIBYR24, which means Black Year in Review for the year 2024. Yes. Right. But that should be, that should be BIB, but there shouldn't be an I there, but it should be BIBYR 2024. So please register for that. And also, again, and I did put this in the chat, I have a trial coming up over something so ridiculous. The state of New Jersey is coming after me, literally, because I attended a pro-Palestinian vigil, and I have that trial is 2/21/25, and I did put the URL to the petition in the chat, but I will say it again. It's tinyurl.com/BIB Lisa Davis. And do we have any other announcements?
Yeah, so Uhuru, Lisa, I wanted to just first of all announce some of the names of people who donated that we didn't get to announce earlier, including Lorna, Katrina, Jan, Barbara, Robert, and Janet. So all of those comrades put in towards our fundraising total tonight, which is how we got to 2,210. So just want to thank everybody for contributing. And in terms of the date of Lisa's trial, Comrade Lisa, we want to make sure people have that information. I know you put that in here somewhere.
Right,
if you want to just...
it's February 21st. Yeah,
February 21st
of this month, right?
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for putting that out, and definitely unite with mobilizing everyone to be at that. And I think there's a couple of slides. If we can pull that up. Okay, great. So the first announcement is that on Wednesday, February 12th at 1:30 p.m. Central Time, we are calling on everybody to attend the permit appeal hearing for Uhuru Bakery and Cafe. This has been part of the desperate colonial attack by the U.S. government, the colonial state, against African people, against the struggle for African self-determination. And as with everything, the community, the Uhuru movement, the office of Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela has been leading an incredible fight back to get this bakery open in an area that they refer to as a, quote, food desert due to the colonial conditions. And the city has been doing everything to block this bakery from being able to open. But this hearing is going to be pivotal, and the people are everything. We're very confident that we're going to win. So we encourage people to come to the hearing. It's open to the public on Zoom. There's no registration. We'll make sure this gets emailed out as well. But yes, it's in the chat now. You just go to that Zoom link and put in the passcode, or you can call in. And if you're able to come, you can put it in the chat, or you can email stl@uhurufoods.org. The next announcement is that the February issue of the Burning Spear newspaper is out, and it sums up the struggle in St. Louis to open the Uhuru Bakery Cafe and more. You can get bundles to distribute in your community at theburningspear.store or subscribe at theburningspear.com/subscribe. And also want to shout out $20 donation from Estina, who is the mother of Comrade Chair Luwezi, who is watching this program right now. So we want to say thank you so much for your contribution in a number of ways to this struggle.
Yeah,
and it's great to have you on, Uhuru. That's very exciting. And the final announcement is, and who's joining us from Canada, I forgot to mention. And the final announcement is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement National Convention is happening here in St. Louis, March 15th and 16th. You can also attend online. And the theme is White Solidarity with Black Power. And we will have Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Chairwoman Penny Hess, among others, as keynote speakers at this incredible convention that is bringing together white people from around the country and beyond to organize under the leadership of the African Revolution and build white solidarity with Black power. So that I think that concludes our announcements. And we just wanted to see if there's any brief closing remarks from our panelists before we head out of this great discussion today.
Uhuru. Relentless.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you.
Yes, well, I just want to, salute Chairman for that's the opportunity to be part of this movement. The development is just historical, everything that's been done. And just watching that documentary, remembering Fanon also was born the same year as Lumumba as Malcolm X, so he's a centenary of Franz Fanon too. So, and be part of this program, it's the best way to remember him and to advance the revolution he was a part of, and yes, well.
And
Uhuru.
also, I just want to give a tremendous big shout out to Chairwoman Luwezi, and Maximella Odom. Reinforcements are on the way. Another baby revolutionary is coming. We are so excited and we are so proud. And we thank you so much for your tremendous leadership, the tremendous leadership of both of you in the Uhuru movement. Just very profound and so appreciated.
Uhuru.
Yes.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Vanguard up.
Relentless.
And of course, salute to the
Uhuru.
chairman. Definitely. Omali,
Yes,
Yeshitela.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. And everybody who participated. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Comrade Lisa, for being on as a fabulous co-MC as always, and salute your leadership as the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. I urge people to tune in for the Year in Review event tomorrow. And thank you and profound revolutionary salute to you, Chairman,
Yes.
to Brad Efia, to Secretary General Luwezi, to Director Tafari, and to all of you that tuned in and helped make this film showing and fundraising a huge success and another victory. We are winning.
Everything that you do,
We are winning.
your email, your comments, everything counts. And also, there is no donation that is too small, because sometimes when people give those little $2, I shouldn't say little $2, but $2, $3, it's from the heart, which is so tremendous, from the heart and the spirit. And it's so appreciated, everything that you do. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. So we'll just close by saying, hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Hands off.
Yes. Free all political prisoners. Uhuru.
Free them all.
Free them all.
Free them all.
Free them all. Black is back. That's for tomorrow, but definitely free them all.